Trollord Games. Join the fray.
I wish I could hear some of this. There you go. Are we live? Good deal. I forgot to comb my hair, tuck my shirt in. What's going on? Ain't nothing right about it. Trying to adjust this picture thing here. Yes, Red Dragon. Epi, how's it going? DM Samuel, Lord Dalius. Jason's with us. We are GM's Tricks of Trade something. I don't have any idea what number it is. 72? I still don't believe those numbers at all. One of these days I'm going to get into it. I'm going to fix it.
Not going to get into that. I'm not getting between you and Tim.
Yeah, he's got it set in his head, but I think he included those redos. I'm gonna see him this weekend. We'll sit down and go. Oh, we ain't going over nothing. I ain't doing shit. How's it going, everybody? Pennsylvania just got shut down again in direct violation of a federal court order. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy out there for a while, Jason. It's just gonna be crazy. Went to a funeral last week and children couldn't even get out and say goodbye to their father. It's a wreck.
That's terrible, man.
It is. It's just a wreck. But there you go. And I got to tell you, we're not going to get into politics, but every single person that I talk to starts talking about this election. It's interesting. I just want to make some books, man. So here's the good news for the day before we dive into Jim's Tricks of the Trade. A 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 has arrived.
Woo!
It is in the house. It looks very beautiful. I'm extremely happy with it. I just kind of thumbed through it. We went over this book about 12,000 times. Not certain we'll actually get shipping started tomorrow. There's not that many moving parts to it, but it's enough of a headache that it might require a whole Monday. Yes, Mark, it's got a 22 by 18. I don't know. It's got a map in there of some size and dimension. That's in the back of the book. And then, of course, a lot of people get a separate map, a second copy of that map as well. And Elisa did a fantastic job on this map. Looks good.
She did. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a big one.
Look at that.
So can you
That's
see
in
that?
the book itself?
Do what?
That's in the book? That's fantastic.
That is in the book. It's in the back. And then they do some kind... Damn it, I already ripped it.
Well, you got like 50,000 more out in the warehouse. So,
Yeah.
You know, this ship,
I'm channeling my
to,
inner Davis.
Grape Ape.
It's, they put them in there with this little glue, these little glue daubs. When you get your copy, you just use your thumb and you rub it off, and then it won't stick anymore and won't stick to other crap. That makes me think. I was looking at some books today. So you see, you can roll it all off, and you're golden. Same thing with the Codex of Air.
Yeah. And you said there was another map? What's the other map?
No, there was two maps, but Peter Bradley's original map, I actually nixed that one. But when we conceived the project, the map was going to be separate, but then I went ahead and had it put in the book. So when we go into retail, everyone's got the map and all of that crap.
I want to
try to... Yeah, I nixed Peter's map and we doubled down on Elisa's. So the book has it in there, and then we had another for the Kickstarter. I don't know, 1,000 or so printed that are separate. But that's a stretch reward that everybody gets an extra map that comes with it. So
I want to try to remember to put. I'd like for us to get like a small canvas map in the store when we get that merch store open. That would be.
Oh, that would be very cool if we get Noble Dwarf to do that, and that would be badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, overall, I'm extraordinarily pleased with this project. It was a hard slog bringing this one together. One of our more complicated ones, which is ironic since we've had it in print for 20 years.
Well, lots of checks and balances.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, any chance of a print run of the map for the store? They're going to be, after we ship the Kickstarter, there'll be about 150 of those left over. If they sell really well, then we'll have them redone and put them up for sale. Normally, But if not, just when we go live, which I'm hoping by Wednesday, that'll be up on the store and for sale. Just give us a shit. I mean, just order it immediately, and we'll get it out to you. Let's distract you from the fact that in 1966, Al Bundy scored 4 touchdowns in a single game while playing with the Polk High School Panthers in the 1966 City Championship game versus Andrew Johnson High School, including the game-winning touchdown in the final seconds against his old nemesis, Bubba Spare Tire Dixon. Absolutely, I'm a huge Al Bundy fan. I love Married with Children. No ding and dent sell yet, Vic Danger, but I'm sure there's a couple of boxes I saw had toppled from the pallet. So it'll in a few months those will creep out.
You always get a few, don't you? Usually.
Oh yeah, definitely. Did I ever post that picture? I got to get this. I got to get it to you. You'd love it. It'd go great out on Facebook and Discord. So when we got Amazing Adventures, I don't know if I could find this easy. When we got Amazing Adventures in. It was raining or had been raining, and this is Amazing Adventures 5e, so it's a 300-page full-color book, just a hefty sucker. I'm looking for it now. When we got that in, the guy running the pallet, he rolled it to the lift gate on the tractor trailer, and then the lift gate broke. And then Todd was standing behind it. I was actually in the warehouse. Todd was standing behind it, and the whole stack of books shifted. Todd had to jump forward, and he literally, like Hercules, threw his hands up against this column of Amazing Adventure books, and stood there holding it until me and the other guy, we couldn't get the liftgate working, so we had to take those. We backed the truck up to it, and we started throwing them off one at a time, trying to get them into the truck before they fell and crashed to the earth. So that was one of Todd's more. I'm looking for that picture right now. I can send it to you, Chuck, and you can throw it up there.
I can do that.
It's somewhere.
So I've been working on a new slogan.
What's that?
What you think about this? Okay, you ready?
Amazing Adventures, where worlds collide.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Gonna make a video for Jason.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, wait. Here we are. Where is Todd?
We've had, you don't know this, but Jason does. We've had a humongous amount of growth in the Adventures group on Facebook in the last. Coming out of the woodworks and joining. I don't know what's going on.
So I'm going to throw this picture. I made it sound far more heroic than it looks, but it was he had to stand there quite a while. All right, it's in your chat bar. And
I'll get there.
Yeah, good luck with all that.
Oh, look at that, man. Awesome.
When that happens, do they give you a credit or reprint for free or something? Nah, Great Babe, they probably would if I pushed it. But we've been with Walsworth for 15, 16 years. They've been fantastic with us. So when we lose, if it's like today's 280 boxes or whatever it was, if we lose 4 or 5, I'm good with that. We stick them in the back somewhere, and then, whatever. The only time I've ever had an issue was Monsters Treasure of Air, and the stitching wasn't done right. And I actually sent that one back to them at their cost, and they restitched all of it and sent it back to me without any extra charge. So it was really cool. They're just great people, and it's one of those things that the relationship is far more important than a few books here and there. And invariably, we drop a box or two in the mailroom or in the warehouse, and things just hit the ground, and there you go. It's way better than bare knuckle role playing was awesome. Hey, speaking of me, stick them in the back of the warehouse, and then 10 years later, Steve tells us I found the box in the back. Yeah, that's exactly right, DM. There's a ton of stuff out there. It's all buried now, though. I put all the Edgar Rice Burroughs books in front of it, so there's not even any accessing the stuff for a little while. It was in my way. And now it's just part of, what's that, Indiana Jones, whatever, temple or whatever. The first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All right, here we go.
Did you get it up?
That needs to be resized.
Oh, yeah, and it's sideways. Yeah, that whole day was just a mess. It was an interesting day. Hey, Steve, you were supposed to send me a care package and that stuff, and you never did. What? No idea what you're talking about, Jason. You're gonna have to use your coupon and order it if you want anything.
There you go. There he is.
Yep, that's Todd. I had to run, get the truck, back the truck up to it. The old warehouse. Oh yeah. Now I remember. You were missing a couple of the GFW books, 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬, I think. Yeah, we've got a few of those stuck back in there, but probably a box of each of those except World Builder, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, texting me about stuff is. Yeah, we got at least one box of 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐝 in there. It's a good book. Our first Gary Gygax publication. All right. No, we are not allowed to sell those things. That is all. Gail removed our rights to do so, so now it's just those are just library copies essentially. We've got some Castle Zagig, and then we got 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐬 and Legendary Adventures and Gord.
Keep going.
Yeah, we got all kinds of stuff stuck back in there. There's all kinds of crazy things in there. Absolutely crazy things in there. Yeah, it's just a lot of stuff. We've been doing this so long, and there's been so many iterations of things, box sets, collector's items, whatever. That
just trash.
It's
trash
just
in your
trash.
way.
It needs to be burned.
Oh, don't start talking like that again. I get heart palpitations when you talk like that.
I love burning stuff. It's good. It's like it's just gone forever. You don't have to worry about it ever again. Maybe we bought
Virtual Wizard. No.
All right, we're arranged to withdraw it from the library then. We got to clean it out. There's so many boxes. I should get a picture of it. So if you look at that picture of Todd, the one Chuck had up, there's 3 stacks about 3 times as large as the stack of books Todd was bracing there. And that's old stuff. So, and a lot of it you'll see, like, I know I took some pictures of this. I'll dig these up and put them up on Discord. But a lot of it you'll see it had something in it at one point. That something was removed and something else was put in the box. And then something else was put. So you'll think it'll have like 7 titles, half of which are scratched out. Some in my handwriting, which you cannot read. Some in Davis's handwriting. He didn't pay attention to what he's writing down. So there's no telling what's in those boxes. I will do what?
Jason, it's cracking me up.
Oh, what did he say? Yes, Steve, send all those guys photos of those collectible books they can never have. I was going to send pictures of the boxes. I will say this, Wilson, my son, who's really got into CNC lately, my youngest one, he dove into those boxes like crazy looking for a first printing of the Player's Handbook, and he finally found one. I think we only found like 6 or 7 of those things. I thought I had an entire box of the first printing, but it doesn't look like I do. But again, a lot of those boxes, God knows what's in them. It's campfire time. Campfire time. Be good in the apocalypse. I got plenty of firewood. I got years and years of firewood. Though it might burn too fast.
Firewood for days.
Yeah. TLG mystery boxes just in. There you go. Everybody gets a box. Watch the stream. We'll send you a box. That's not going to happen. That's way too much fun. I mean, way too much work. We may soon have our own amazing adventure warehouse heist. There you go. Yeah, I got to say, looking at those GFW books on, what is it, eBay or Amazon or wherever, going for $400 a pop, there's quite a bit of money in the back of that, warehouse. It's a lot stuck away, but that's good. All right, but anyways, warehouse heists aside, we are here for GM's Tricks of the Trade number 72. Alignment. This is always a tricky conversation to have. Some people take it very, very seriously. Some people don't use it hardly at all. So alignment is one of those, and it's one of those things. And as we all know, it's very subjective. I mean, there's clear definitions in games like Castles and Crusades and Dungeons and Dragons and DCC and Sword and Wizardry or whatever. There's usually clear definitions of alignment and what alignment is and restrictions of your actions and all of this stuff. But even that, in the practical application of alignment, it's one of those things at the table that is really superfluous. I have yet to see a GM who religiously follows all strict, definitions of, 7 alignments or whatever the hell it is.
We when I was growing up, we did like crazy. You know what I mean? It was a big deal. But now I don't even think about it. I tell people not even put it down
It's
the character sheet because I'd rather them just play it. And you know, if they're lawful good and they're acting chaotic evil, it doesn't matter. They're going to catch the consequences anyway. You know.
no, that's
You
how
recognize? Does anybody recognize the graphic on today's title?
that's kind of what the whole. Oh yeah, that's from the Player's Handbook, AD&D Player's Handbook, the alignment chart. It's one of those things that um, it's so subjective. I don't know if it's subjective because it's clearly defined. Maybe that's not the right word, but it's one of those things that people aren't. Rarely can you take an individual and put them in a particular alignment and define them this way, because people will do good things and people will do bad things. And sometimes they do good things when they intended to do bad things, or bad things when they intended to do good things. And a lot of times they don't do anything and they just take that, neutral path or whatever it is. So for a character to follow a certain creed or what have you, defined by what their alignment is next to impossible. I mean, it can be done. You certainly can restrict people, but it's very, very hard to do. And it's not something that I would encourage any GM doing. It usually just drags the game down or causes problems. And we'll get all of that in the tricks of the trade here in a second. But now that's not to say that, and I pointed this out in the tricks of the trade. It's not to say that that evil doesn't exist or good doesn't exist. It does by the definitions in the game. And monsters adhere to those. And I use the example of the orc. I know that the orc has been kind of turned on its head in Dungeons and Dragons, and they've in 5th edition they've expanded it to be just like anybody else, which whatever, that's their game system, carry on. But if you look in the World of Aird and in Castles and Crusades, the orc's not. The orc is evil. It's listed as evil. It's evil. It's not a good creature. It always acts evilly. If it does something good, it does so by accident. So it doesn't have that kind of nebulous defining thing about, whatever it is, that situational not awareness, situational conflict where you might be good or you might be evil or what have you. It's none of that. The orc is evil. Gibbering Mouther, it's evil. These creatures are evil. And the GM needs to understand that to run the game, because creatures are definably evil. When it comes to player characters, it's a whole different ball of wax. Because this is people, actual people who are humans, they're actual Homo sapiens, actually playing these people, and it's almost impossible for you to shed that, emotional core that all humans have. So that drives you to do good and evil and neutral or what have you. And even in that context, the vast majority of things that we do that might be construed as not good aren't necessarily evil. You get the shopping cart, you take it to your car, and you leave it in the parking lot. You don't return it to the grocery store, right? Returning it to the grocery store is an act of good. It's a good thing. You're helping people out, for no other reason than to do it. But if you leave the grocery cart in the parking lot, is that an act of evil? If it hits someone's car, no, it's not an act of evil. That's crazy. It's just negligence, whatever. So even getting into this whole careful definition of it, it just weighs down. It weighs down. We'll get into that more a little bit as we jump into it. Let's see. That's kind of the problem. Jason Vey, that's kind of the problem. Too many people treat alignment like it's a box into which you stuff your character. It's not. It's a descriptor. Exactly. It's just something. It's a guideline at best. This is what it's sort of like. Go. I don't like alignments. I tried to remove it in one campaign setting, but ended up nerfing paladins that can detect evil because it's removing abilities. So I damned if you do, damned. Yeah, you're right, Zero. And that's one reason that I stress that monsters can be evil and good, because then the paladin isn't punked. He and whoever else has detect alignment. It's an actual ability that can affect the game. And Davis is like you. He actually dropped alignments completely. He doesn't. It's not even. It doesn't allow him. It's just not part of your character. There's no reason to put alignment down as your character, even if you're a paladin. Just move on. Which 𝐓𝐫𝐤𝐜𝐤, Dr. Pepper. Yeah, I would be mostly Dr. Pepper. Is what I think I would be. I haven't used alignment in ages. Yeah. I always require players to put it down, but I really don't know why. Because it never comes into play. I can't remember the last time it actually came into play. Even the paladin that was at the table for the longest time, it didn't come into play that much. We just kind of redefined things and loosened up the definition of lawful good so that he could act like a normal, person. Alignment is a basic, quick reference to describe your character's basic moral and ethical outlook. It's not a hard box. Yeah, that's exactly right. Steve's PG. Pepper good. There you go. Seth has a great video on how to play an evil PC. Yeah, that's one thing I always try to avoid, but that might be interesting to watch. I tell my players the alignment is just an initial starting point and that they determine their PC's own behavior after that. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's just a start off. What do they call it? A starting block, something. Leaving it as chaotic. And chaotic neutral is really the place to be. Yes, it is evil. I hate those people. Yeah, I tend to be one of those guys when I empty my cart, I take it back to the cart where I got it. It's tool that I borrowed from somebody. I used it. I return it to the grocery store. I don't put it in the little bin. I don't leave it next to something. I take it all the way back. But Chuck's shaking his head. No.
I did that the other day, and honestly, I struggled with doing it.
Everyone looks at you like you're weird. Why? Why is he? Yeah, and I'm also one of those people that if I see a cart in the, I'll take that cart into Target.
Oh, that's too far. That's too much.
No. I mean, if I need a cart and I'm going to Target and one's sitting out in the parking lot, I'll just grab it and go.
Oh.
And push it all the way because I get a lean on it.
I thought you were like clearing the parking lot up.
Oh no, I don't do that. They do have people, that they've hired to do that, but yeah, I try to get. I don't know. It's not my tool, and it's going to hit someone's car and it's going to scratch some dude's cool Mustang that he just bought, and that sucks. I mean, so get the carts out of the parking lot. That said, I absolutely hate using shopping carts. I was at the grocery store this afternoon, and I had my hands just filled with shit because I wouldn't get a shopping cart. I absolutely hate the damn things. I feel like if I get a shopping cart, I'm going to buy more than I intended to buy and spend more money than I wanted to. So it's kind of a psychological thing with me. Don't get a shopping cart. And see, if the PCs are being obvious murder hobos, I'll let them know how. Yeah, they're going to get executed is how that's going to end. Yeah, that's the thing. We'll get into that too, Lord Dailies. That's right. I mean, that you give it a loose definition and deal with it as you go forward. And if they start acting evil, then there's consequences for acting evil. And that's one of the reasons I've run about maybe half a dozen, probably less than that, evil parties since I've been running games. And it always ends the same way, with them hanging from a noose, burned at the stake, or just decapitated. If you're evil and the thing about that, and we'll get into this a little bit, but if you're evil, if you're lawful evil and you walk into a bar where there's wizards and a few clerics and a couple of the guys, and someone happens to realize that you're actually evil, the chances of them just letting you pass through, it would be like Sauron showing up in the Shire, just sitting around drinking a beer, and Gandalf and Saruman are like, that's okay, it's just Sauron. It's not okay. Some cleric is going to expunge you from the planet. About the only time it comes up in my game, if a character picks up a powerful item with an alignment, that's probably a good reason. Almzad, I'm glad you said it. That's a good reason to actually have it, because there are artifacts that have an alignment that can impact your ability to control them. So that's a good point. Lawful good behavior. Well, I was putting a shopping cart up. I'm not sure about that. But we need to put a deposit coin in the trolley, 51 or 2, all fit when we take it back to. Oh, there you go. So that's an interesting way of doing it. Don't even wait for the goodness of man. Just charge them and go. Yeah, there you go. Another thing a lot of people do understand is that evil doesn't have to mean a wanton murderer and rapist. Evil people can care about others. They can form relations. They do realize the value in operating within a group. That's true. That's true, Jason. But if it's evil, if it's defined as evil, then it's evil. Its purpose is at the end of the day, and you have to have, in my opinion, you have to have that because the monsters are built around the idea of evil being at the table, and you want to expunge it from the earth. Everyone takes their cards back. You had to get their money. My wife and I always take our card back. There you go. That's how aides work here. Not aides. Aldi's work here. Take it back and get a quarter. If they have to use the name of the Baron or Duke, that could have very bad consequences for the Duke, and he may make them pay for it. Yep. I tell players, play them how you want. Just make sure it doesn't have negative effects on the party. I have a paladin who last session desecrated another paladin's tomb. It was... Yeah, that would definitely have it. The end justifies the means, and taking them from us. Many shows of books show people that will do anything to save, protect, shelter what they view as us and theirs. Yeah, that's true. That's why it does get kind of nebulous, and that's why I don't try to define an orc as in a human definition of evil. I'm sure Jeffrey Dahmer at some point in his life did something nice for somebody. Does that make him good? Is he evil? I don't know. But in the context of the game, there is evil. I just don't think it's a good idea to stamp it on your character. A cleric, a wizard, a star hunter walk into a bar. I go with the old school version, detect evil. If you're less than like the 10th level, your evil isn't big enough. Oh, there you go. So it has kind of gradations of evil. All right, so we haven't even gotten into the first trick of the trade. So we're already at the halfway mark, which isn't sort of actually true because we've kind of talked about it. So the first thing is, and this is exactly what half of you have been saying, is just downplay alignment. Just, have them write it down for the artifact as pointed out, or for the detect evil, or whatever it is, the paladin, have them scribble down their alignment, but just downplay the whole thing. Don't have it a huge part of your game. Don't even focus on the paladin's lawful good as he has to do, X, Y. He has to return the shopping cart all the time. Don't necessarily focus on that. Just downplay the whole thing. Alignment's there. It's like speed. Speed is cool. You want it at the table, but it doesn't always really impact the game that great. It probably comes up in my game every time I play, but it doesn't change the course of whatever, because it's just a mechanic that can be adjusted by, whatever the GM wants, weather conditions, terrain conditions, equipment, all. There's so many things that can affect speed that you take the same approach to alignment. Just downplay the whole thing. It's there, but not necessarily used. I'm glad that you picked a topic that's not controversial. Yeah, it is one of the. Some people get very fired up about alignment without a doubt. Let's see, Jason V. What if someone would be detectable if they had recently done evil acts while still being low level, as opposed to not? Yeah, see that. Then you get into gradations. And we haven't even talked about random television shows. Yeah, we will, Blood Wild. We will. Yeah, speaking of which, Blood Wild. So I'm watching the X-Files, and my daughter and I are watching it, and we get to the end of season 5, where they burn down, where Smoking Man, spoiler alert, where Smoking Man burns all the X-Files. And then we skip to season 6, and we're watching it, and there's all of this shit that's going on. And my daughter and I looking at each other, well, what's happening? So we had to do a research, and we found out that the first X-File movies, takes place between season 5 and season 6, and I had completely forgotten that. So now I've stopped, bought the movie, and we'll watch the movie. Probably tomorrow night. I hear you're calling somebody. Yeah, there you go. Blood Wild got us off on movies. All right, let's move to the next trick of the trade. What are we doing with the next guy? Middle of the road. Oh yeah. So this is really this kind of becomes the de facto, and I think this is why Davis abandoned alignment altogether. Chaotic neutral tends to be that defined that it kind of covers 95% of people ourselves and people that we know. There's sometimes you act irrationally. For the most part, you're kind of you can go both ways on an action, whether it's good or evil. You're not really self-serving, but you're kind of more focused on what's happening with you and your friends or family or what have you. So going middle of the road in Castles and Crusades and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, that's the only 2 games I can speak of. It's chaotic neutral. So whatever game you're playing, try to push your players in that direction. Chaotic neutral, neutral good, maybe neutral, something like that. It just kind of gives a little bit more latitude for everybody to take particular actions and do whatever it is. Let's see. Jason C. I disagree about chaotic neutral. Too many people play CNS chaotic random or chaotic stupid. They roll dice to determine what they're going to do at any given moment and use it as an excuse to behave badly on being evil. Yeah, I don't let anybody roll dice for their actions. That never. I don't. It's one of the things I just don't do. You don't get to roll your action, whatever. The thing about, for me, with chaotic neutral is, and I don't know about random stupid, because characters do random stupid shit all the time, so it kind of fits. But sometimes you act, sometimes you put the shopping cart up, sometimes you don't put the shopping cart up, sometimes you're just too mad. And it's not so much chaos, but it is chaos in the situation. There's so many factors that could play into the emotional reaction of the character, or into the emotions of the character that govern the reaction. that it is ungovernable. You can't define it. It's actually more like entropy, if you want a real definition of it. Your alignment should be entropic, because entropy is that which we cannot measure in a system, that amount of chaos in a system that we cannot measure. We know it's there, but we can't measure it. And that's where I lump in chaotic neutral into that. Neutral and neutral good, I'm kind of, I don't know. Neutral, I don't know. Neutral, I think I really do kind of define as someone who has, and again, all of these definitions are subjective. So Jason, I can sit here and argue about this all day. It's not relevant. So what the point of my GM tricks of the trade here is what Jason should do as a GM is use neutral good as his middle of the road. I use chaotic neutral as my middle of the road. So there it is. At Jason's table, it's going to be neutral and good. He wants to encourage people to play neutral and neutral good. Now, because of the way he defines chaotic neutral. And again, it's so subjective. So, and this is, I'm glad Jason said that, because that actually just brings home point two. Whatever it is in your game that is the middle of the road, use that. For instance, Mark Sandy worked for me. He still works for us part-time, but he's worked for me for years. I've gamed with Mark since the 80s. And he has a very stringent definition of law. When you play in Mark's game, the societies are kind of built around this lawful structure. So I'm just guessing here. I'm just putting words into Mark's mouth. I imagine that his middle of the road would be lawful. He's going to say, all right, when you make your character, you really want to play lawful. You don't have to, but you want to play lawful. It'll make things easier. So Jason, neutral, neutral, good. Me, chaotic, neutral. Mark, lawful. Whatever it is in your game that is the middle of the road, go middle of the road. Or encourage your characters to go. You'll find it easier for them to play. They'll find it easier to play, and you'll find it more palpable to run them in the scenarios that you've got going on. Middle of the road. I see. That's what is that? Straddling the fence? Is that what? Just straddle the fence? See, that brings up a very interesting situation. The paladin has to detect evil in the presence of a young person who is destined to become a person who is cosmically threatened evil when they're an adult. Now that's interesting, and that's where. Do what, Chuck?
Yeah. No, I just think that's interesting what Jason said. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean that's what DM said in kind of response to Jason, and that's one of the things at your table. And we're going to talk about this here in GM's tricks of the trade. You really do need for yourself is to get some kind of definition. It is subjective, but if you're going to use alignment, understand it and understand what role it's going to have at your table. But that really only counts towards evil, and we'll get to that here in just a second. Let's see. So, blah, blah, do you have any questions in there? Is there no hope for redemption? Can evil be undone by good acts? Yeah, absolutely. I think so, definitely. And that's one reason that I try to not, like if you play a chaotic evil character, then their bent is evil and they're not, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that you've defined yourself in that category. And if a lawful good cleric, NPC cleric, casts detect evil on you, they're going to know you're evil. It's not going to be whether you wanted to kill that little kid or not. You're evil. That's how you're defined, and you're going to end up burned at the stake, or at least minimally fighting your way out of town. That's one reason evil for me is just one of those things that I discourage players from doing. There's too much magic at the table. Hell, I've DM'd for decades now. Todd's Paladin for 20 years. That dude detected everything. Every monster and NPC that they encountered, he immediately detected evil. And I've got Pete is playing in my Tuesday night game. He's playing an Oathsworn, I believe, and they have his thing is chaotic evil. It's constantly just casting out. Is there evil in that direction? Is there evil in that direction? So there's no reason to think that a lawful good cleric who's sitting in a bar sees your character doing something questionable. They detect evil, and now you got real problems. And the game's got real problems because now are they going to let evil people wander around? Probably not. It's not. Most fantasy systems
unless
don't
it's an evil city.
Well, I was just about to say, most fantasy systems don't have a judiciary where they require 12 peers to have them put in prison. But if it's an evil city, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, absolutely. But most cities are not. They're going to be just people with a baron or a king or whatever nobility you use, blah blah blah, and you're going to end up. Like in the Middle Ages, they rarely put people in prison. It was uncommon to imprison people. It was very common to cut their hands off or to execute them. So that's where the game usually ends with evil characters. I say, I guess it depends on how they feel. Do they regret and wish to undo the past evil? I say it's change. Cleric turning versus controlling might need addressing. Oh, no, that's interesting. Or you might have an evil undead. I go by the god they worship, though I only allow specific, specialty priests, not generic clerics. Okay, Steve, then here's the thing. What's the point of detect alignment if all you need to detect good or detect evil? Well, the thing about detect alignment is against monsters. It's not against player characters. Now, we're talking about players here. So if you detect alignment, you can determine if this monster is evil. So say it's a doppelganger that has taken on the role of whatever. I don't know. The doppelganger's Chuck at your table. So now you can find out that the doppelganger is evil. And I don't know if doppelgangers are evil. I can't remember. But so yeah, the whole purpose behind detect alignment is against monsters, not against NPCs, or even it is against NPCs, but not against PCs. So a creature using detect alignment, it's a little bit. I mean, they have it, definitely they have it, but it's a little bit more nebulous for me. I can't. It's rare that I do it. I mean, if the devil is there, and whatever, standing before the party, he doesn't really give a shit what alignment they are. They can be evil or they can be good. He doesn't care. They're in his room and they're going to get killed. And so it's it just doesn't play that huge of a role at the table at all. For me, I use detect evil to thwart or plot to steal my brownie. There you go. I know for DCC, at least you have to have alignment for at least the cleric healing. They do more healing based on the target's alignment in the same, adjacent, or opposed. Oh, interesting. I might also have a giant skull, but you're echoing. Am I echoing? I kind of like that idea. Here's a question, Steve. What's your take on alignment being a requirement for attuning to certain magic items? In your opinion, should alignment be used in the game to restrict access to things like that? That is one of the places I think, Chad Skiles, that it would come into play. So if you've got the Holy Avenger, lawful good sword, and you're chaotic neutral, then there's a good chance that it's not going to, all of its functions won't work for you if any of them do. So that's somewhere I definitely would use alignment. And it's one reason I have players put alignment on. I should have mentioned that in the Tricks of the Trade. I think Lord Daly has mentioned that earlier. But yeah, definitely there you have alignment. But again, even on that, I mean, so you've created an artifact, or you've brought an artifact into the game. How restrictive do you want to be on that artifact? Do you want to have it not have a role at your table? You want to have a very strict definition of all the alignments and what can and can't interact, because that has a bigger picture effect on what's going on. But I definitely would use alignment for that. A lot of cities are going to have more issues with chaos. Well, that's for sure. Yeah, nobody likes chaos. See, I treat it exactly the opposite way. Detect evil is for creatures like devils and demons and polymorphed and dragons. Detect alignment is for PCs. Yeah, I don't think Castles and Crusades has detect evil anymore. I think it's just detect alignment, and that's definitely it's definitely Davis and Mac, because neither of them like alignment very much at all. But I guess I don't see your distinction. Detect evils for creatures like devils and demons, and polymorphed red dragons and alignments for PCs. But how often? I guess my question to you, Jason, would be: how often do PCs detect alignment on each other? I mean, is that a huge thing at your table? Because I discourage heavily PCs having opposite alignment. I don't want evil and good players at the table. It's not going to end well ever. Someone's going to end up killing somebody, and then you're going to have either a first level and sixth level, where you're going to have some irritated people at the table. Yeah, I always steer people heavily away from that. A chaotic good character can be much more disruptive than a lawful evil character. Well, that's an interesting thought. Does a beholder have a skull, and can it be animated? No, I don't think it has a skull. That's just me shitballing without thinking about it. This question is detect evil should only work if the living targets are monsters, or if the people are actively planning evil. Oh, no, that's an interesting take on it. Chuck was echoing. Oh, I got it. A holy sword versus demon sword alignment items can make for a great plot thread. I think alignment definitely has a place and a role to play. I just think it shouldn't be treated as a box, nor should it be absolute. People can have alignments and still be individuals within the broad parameters of alignment. Players generally don't use it on themselves, but they may use it on an NPC, bartender, or contact. Yes, in that context, if I have an evil bartender, he's evil. There's not going to be gradations of. I'm not going to develop his personality to the point that there's gradations of him being just a normal person. I shouldn't say that. There will be some of that, but in that case, I'm going to make him chaotic neutral. But if I want the bartender to be evil, like maybe Grandma Wormtongue. I don't know. Was he evil? I guess he was evil. Someone like that, then the detect alignment actually comes into play because they can detect that creature is evil. Because at that point, again, I'm treating the NPC as a monster at that point. So let's dive into number 3, which is exactly what we're talking about through half of this, is avoiding evil. And this is what we've all kind of talked about and kind of walked around a little bit. But hold on, we might have a question. Have you ever encouraged a player to change their alignment as listed on their sheet due to the choices they've made over a campaign? No, I never. I really try not to make players do stuff like that. I don't. There's things that players do that drive me absolutely bonkers. Most of it comes in their descriptions, and because I discourage so heavily from them playing evil or neutral evil or cat evil, and Jason actually has a fantastic definition of neutral evil. When he told me that years ago, I immediately adopted it. I try to push them away from evil so that I don't have a reason for them to change. And it is so rare. It is absolutely so rare that if you run a campaign, that you have any one individual sitting at that table who acts the same with each game over a years of period. They do like we do. Sometimes they take the shopping cart back. Sometimes they don't. And there's so many things that come in, like an absolute perfect example of this. Mac is playing a 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐝 ranger in my game, and it's been there forever. And Mac always acts good. He always does. I can only think of once, and it was very recently. And Chuck, you were in on the game when Mac got so mad at that boy that was just kept saying and repeating something. It was this 10-year-old child, and here's this 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐝 ranger. He got so angry he threw him through the window. He just threw him through the window, hoping it was a monster. What he's trying to do was unmask the monster. It wasn't. It was a 10-year-old boy. When he hit the ground, he broke his leg and was crying and all that stuff. Is that an act of evil? Yeah. Picking up a child and throwing him through a window. Yeah, I think that meets the criteria. Is Mac's character evil? No, I don't think so at all. So it gets into this zone of they're people like you and I. And we do things sometimes that we shouldn't. We try to do what is right, for the most part. We try to do what is right, and sometimes we don't. So that's kind of why I downplay it, steer them in the middle, and avoid evil. That way, if someone's actions at the table seem to be going one way or the other, then you don't really have to do it. Now, all of that said, I would say once it was a paladin that I was DMing that I had to pull the player aside, and we had quite an argument over actions they were taking and whether they were just or good. And the paladin was lawful good, and I was more strict in those days. I didn't have him change alignment, but I ended up telling him you're going to lose experience points, basically. If you start acting out in a way that I don't think is lawful or good, then you're going to lose experience points. I'm not going to award you experience points for actions that you've taken, or you might even lose them if actions that you take. And that was a way for me to control the tone of his actions, to keep them from being too evil, or it wasn't like they were evil, but they were questionable at times. And that's kind of how I do it. So the short answer is no, I never have, but the longer answer is I have used tools to encourage players to play a certain way to make it easier. On this, we're in total agreement. I generally don't permit evil characters at my table because I run a hero game. I've had one player in all my years get a game who trusts to play properly. Yeah, it's just not fun. And he's in my current group and in my current game playing an evil sorcerer who has no problem interacting with the more honorable characters because he understands how useful they are to him and his plans. Yeah, that's cool. If you can get someone to do it, I still always discourage it. It never ends particularly well. I don't mind dipping a character into evil for a few sessions. It makes for great plot threads and allows all the PCs to go places they otherwise wouldn't by trying to redeem their frame. Oh, no, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. So almost like the old, what was it, the helm of alignment? It switched your alignment or something in AD&D? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't change someone's alignment permanently. I have a story about just that thing, but it's far too long to post here. The XP, yes, yes, Mark, the old EXP leverage. I used to use that heavily in the day. Let's see, so when I was as well as stories full of practical lessons on why you should never do it. I'm a bit too good at playing paladins at times, or so I've been told by some DMs. Pete does play a good paladin. He plays a better illusionist. Peter, that's Peter Bradley. For those who don't know, Ravenchild art. I've run Peter in a few games when he played an illusionist. He did a fantastic illusionist, and that's a hard class to play. Short version, a DM let his players indulge their desire to play evil for one session. The next session, when they came back, they found out that everything their evil characters did affected their good characters in horrible ways to the point of burning down their village. There you go. I did play an evil character once. There was a whole party of evil people, and we raided a village, burned everything down, killed a bunch of people, then hit a caravan, and we had a whole bunch of stuff. And then I was chaotic evil, so we had all this treasure and stuff, and on my watch that like third night, I slit everybody's throats and took everything. Nobody at the table was very happy. They were all very angry at me. But there you go. So trick of the trade number 3. Chuck, you didn't advance our thingamabob. Trick of the trade number 3 was avoid evil. Yeah. Well, isn't that what someone evil would do, Chad Skiles? Man, they were mad. Do what, Chuck? Oh, is that what you got up there? I cannot. Let's see. Avoid evil. What does it say? Also good? Ah, I can't read it out loud. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So bring that to your table. Just avoid evil if you can. It's always interesting to see how all the various ways people use or don't use alignment. My core group and I started with the 𝐓𝐫𝐚𝐝 D&D. Man, that's a lot of blood wild. So we only had lawful, neutral, and chaotic. And that's kind of where Datus came from. We still tend to lean towards methods other than that method than good evil for players. Yeah. Mama always said that evil as evil does. Forrest Gump. There you go. If you're going to play a thief, what fun is it if you're play neutral good? I've played tons of them and never had any problems. Just be professional. I found lawful good paladins to be much more. Oh yeah, I think the paladin is probably, in my experience, the most destructive class at the table, and it's because of the way people interpret. And Amzad, you did brilliantly here. It's because of the way people interpret the way lawful good has to be played, which brings us right into trick of the trade number 4, bend. And this is what if they're playing that crazy, stringent, whatever, just bend your definitions of it. Don't be so stringent on it that they can only act X, Y, and Z. Open it up. Oh Lord. That's what's this? Yes, that's Atreides, Duke, Paul Atreides, and Sting playing the Harkonnen, stabbing him. Yes, and he says, "I will bend with it like a reed in the wind." I'm a huge fan of Dune. I love that first book. The other ones were good, but not as good as the first one. Huge fan of Dune. Spot on, Steve. Like R.A. Salvador quit points lawful good doesn't mean lawful stupid. Exactly. Yeah, so you can open up your definitions of things, and this way it'll just make things easier. If you get so crazy stringent on this alignment has to behave this way, it's going to be a constant argument forever through your game. So just bend with it. Just open up. All right, let's ramble into number 5. What are we doing here? Don't. Okay, yeah. So now this is the one, and I guarantee you, Jason, it's hit Jason's table. This is the one that overrides it all. Don't debate any of it. You're the game master. It's your game. Don't get into some weird esoteric discussion about what is evil and what is good. They'll start quoting Buddha to you or putting whatever, all kinds of philosophical mumbo jumbo that you really don't want at the table. And you're going to end up into religious arguments and all kinds of stuff. Just don't debate it. It's so subjective by social conditions, cultural conditions, religious conditions, societal conditions, the way you were raised, the way you weren't raised. There's so many things that go into the way you perceive what is good and evil, and what is not and isn't, that you just don't debate it. Don't. It's like, what are the 3 things you should never debate? You should never talk about in public: money, religion, and politics. So at the gaming table, it should be money, religion, politics, and alignment. Just don't debate it. Just don't have it. Let's see, what is this? I have one guy who, to this day, insists he should be able to play a lawful good assassin because it's just a skill set. Yeah. It's a profession where you commit cold. I'm in agreement with you there, Jason. I hate that class. It's why it's going to the back of the book.
Here we go.
Into the
Here we go. Here we go.
I hate that class. Todd. So, Jason, next time you see Todd, you got to debate with him because he is that guy. He will tell you that an assassin can be lawful good because assassins, it's just a skill set. They're just an assassin. No. An assassin, by definition, is a murderer. It's like if you had a class called murderer, and I'm going to play him like the guy who gives candy to children. No, he's a murderer. That's what defines him. It's exhausting. It's all exhausting. It's why, what was it, Laura Burns, she was playing it at Davis's table, and big discussion, big argument over whether these trolls, and we've talked about this before, whether these trolls were evil or not. And I finally ended it by picking up the book and saying, look, it says right here, they're evil. It says that they are evil. Stop this nonsense. I say, I love when Steve goes on one of his anti-assassin rants. Yeah, I can't stand that class. I absolutely can't stand it. It's horrible. And it doesn't even have any effect on the game. What is it? Can disguise himself?
You know what? Honestly, and I know we're not going to change it because we don't change the rules, but looking back, it would have been better as an optional thing in the CKG, like a skill, like a different type of rogue, you know?
It would have. We should have thrown the assassin and the monk out.
I like the monk. We're not going to argue about that.
The monk is okay. I cannot get David Carradine out of my head, and I like David Carradine. He did some great stuff, but yeah, his whole kung fu thing, didn't like it. Didn't like it then, don't like it now, and it all drives me crazy. But the assassin they're useless at the table. They can disguise themselves and stab people. Or what are you going to do in a dungeon? You're going to sit there and case target for 10 minutes while all these creatures are flying around? I don't know. It's just crazy. If you're doing a good city adventure, I suppose an assassin's going to have a place. But
I had a guy that played an assassin for about 2 years in several of my games. I don't think maybe one time did he make the roll. And that's all he could do. I mean, better than that, it was pretty much just, he was.
I know they're kind of, and maybe other game systems may have more to it. That I don't know. But let's see. Omzad says, "Love assassins, but I could lose paladins or monks." Paladins can be very destructive. Very, very. An assassin is a pro mortician. There you go, Peter. Hey, I play assassins by choice and have no problem with it. Definitely not lawful good, though. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. But I'm sure you can make an argument for it. But for me, I just don't. I can't get past the name. Just like with Monk, I can't get past the David Carradine. I just can't. And we've actually, if you read the original Monk as it was written and how it was rewritten by me in the fourth printing, I toned down all of the martial arts and went more with a pugilist style. And I don't even know, I'm not even sure what we've done. But no, Peter's done two art. He did the art for the Monk in the new one. Yeah, they're pretty good. They get away from the David Carradine thing, but they don't go pugilist. I didn't even think about that, Peter. I should have had you draw a couple of pugilists. My one player who, so you're trying to kill, yes, Bloodwild. I'm trying to murder that class. My one player who ever played an assassin, likened it to a sniper in the army. They're just doing a job. I can get that. That's what Todd's going to say. And a sniper's definitely not a murderer. He's a soldier on a battlefield. And even if you go that direction and you want to, he really needs a different name because an assassin is a hired murderer. A sniper is a sniper. And we've talked about switching the name, and I'm just not going to do it. Yeah, I mean, you definitely can make the argument, but then you're stuck with a skill set that's pointless, borderline pointless. The Monk, Great Ape, nothing is wrong with the Monk. Just it's my imagery in my head. I cannot get the David Carradine kung fu guy out of my head. No matter what I do, it always goes to Eastern martial arts, and I don't know why it should. And it just is one of those things. And like Todd and I have argued for years and years and years and years and years and years. If you karate chop an ancient red dragon, that red dragon isn't going to care. It's not going to feel your karate chop or whatever your judo throw or whatever. It's just not. Lord Delius, don't throw them away just because you can't play them. Exactly. That's why they're staying in the book. It's all in the book. If you could snatch the pebble from my hand, yeah. Grasshopper. Chaotic monks. Chaotic monk assassin. There you go. As a DM, you have to let the assassins and thieves have their skill and backstab chances. Yeah, and the thief they can do all kinds of stuff like climb walls and listen at doors. They've got a greater usable skill set than the assassin does. Now, I'm talking about Castles and Crusades and AD&D. The assassin skill set just wasn't that great, so it's not that practical. I'm not grabbing pebble level yet, more like Bloody Knuckles hitting straw figure, starving for rice but can't eat with broken hands. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Children Games, it's fixed. You can incorporate lots of cultural. Yeah. We can do that later, Peter. With the player's handbook, he is the monk. We're not going to change any of that. I have done some research. Amazing Adventures is named a pugilist and changed it so much powers. Yeah, the pugilist I like. It just doesn't fit in a Norse, Germanic, Celtic fantasy world. It would be, and that's up for Brian Young because he's already finished the Chinese mythologies and the Koreans, and those are somewhere in all of my files that he sent over and I haven't looked at. It will feel my stunning fists of fury blow here. I had a player who played an assassin as a spy bounty hunter. It depends upon what part of the campaign it took place in. And this was over years of play. A lot did take place in cities and courts. Yeah, if you're doing that, if you have a lot of that, then the assassin has a much greater role in it. I do city adventures, but not much. I do a lot of court stuff, but it's more role playing than it is adventuring, if that makes sense. So it gets into this kind of zone of the assassin. Again, isn't doing very much. Monks come forward in their mentality. Stephen, my friend, we need to have a long talk about what use an assassin is. There you go, Lord Dailies. That's what I need to do is write up tricks of the trade on how to, and Lord, you could do it, just how to run the assassin. It's those things with me. First impressions with me are absolutely monstrous, and the word assassin sets me off. And then the monk, as he's kind of described in the original David Carradine Kung Fu concept, is as bad. Now, here's another one I'll tell you. I actually like the class bard, but I don't want to see the bard with, like Guitar Zan out there going, Guitar Zan, or whatever the hell he's doing. I don't want to see any kind of stringed instruments, a lute, a harp, or any of that craziness with a bard. You're not going to be walking around with a cello in a dungeon, playing the cello or playing the lute or the oboe or any of these things. And so often the bard is depicted in that way. They've got some kind of guitar that they're running around. What is the movie Mad Max? Drums are cool. The Mad Max, the guy with the freaking guitar playing on the truck as they're chasing Max and what's her name across the desert. But so the bard, and where I've actually, Zoe's done the art. And it was like pulling teeth getting her to take those instruments out. One has a horn. That's cool. Drums are cool. Just get rid of the instruments. I don't want anything to do with the instruments. I have a long chat about bards and bass divas. Used to be for the bard should be using their voice more than anything. They should be singing songs. They should be carrying, encouraging. A choral music is more powerful than most orchestra music, so the bard should actually be singing while they're fighting, chanting dirges while others are doing the battle. That's how they encourage people. That's how they, impart ancient knowledge. Isn't by playing some tunes, but by actually reciting ancient stories. I mean, do you suppose that when Bilbo was walking down the path heading towards Rivendell at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, that he was playing a guitar while he was singing Roads Go Ever, Ever On? No, he was reciting poetry to himself. That's what he was doing, at least in my mind. So that's what, on the bard, I tried all of the instruments, just got to go. He needs to play more of these Troubles and Places. Yeah, there you go. Maybe I do need to be on that side of the screen more often. Bard is my favorite version. I love the bard in CNC is very powerful. And if you notice, there's very little about, is there even an instrument thing that they have? They really, bagpipers are cool. There's actually a Celtic band that they use drums only. Clanad? No, not Clanad. Anyways, it's something. You can find them all over the place. And they're drums. And drums are kind of, but even drums, if you're beating drums and going into combat, you can't fight. There's no way you can fight with a giant drum in front of you. But if you're singing combat, you can actually sing that. You can actually recite the ancient, tales of the poets while you're fighting. So the bard that uses their voice is far more, to me, is far more evocative and just cool than the bard who is playing an instrument, because then they're just playing the instrument, and it's just in my head. Again, I have trouble picturing 5 or 6 people in this bloody fray with a bunch of orcs in the middle of a hallway, and it's axes and heads being cloven and armor flying in every which direction, and a grating of metal, and just blood splattering across the floor and entrails and all of this stuff. And here's a guy in the background going, "Guitar Zan, he's a jungle man." Yeah, I don't. It just doesn't work for me. Bards are persuasive orators and storytellers. That's it, DM, right there. Let's see. I treat them like Norse skalds. They're epic poets. That's it, right there. I see. Bards is persuasive orators. Yes, you've clearly never seen a band kid nail someone. There you go, Peter. Poke him in the eye. There you go. Silver tongued. Yes, that's kind of how it. Grimer Wormtongue. Maybe he's a bard. He speaks all of this sorcery into what's his name, Theoden's ear. So there maybe he's a bard. I don't know. At any rate, so back to alignment. Man, just some classes I just really don't like. People should just play fighters, clerics, and wizards. It's just what everybody should play. Just be normal. There you go. But Napoleon, yes, they did. They definitely did have musicians. Cold Steel. I'm not sure. American armies, they did as well. A lot of that was keeping time so that you could march and shoot at timing. I think the Spartans used horn blowers. They definitely did, and it was all about a timing so that your units could actually march and pivot and fire and engage simultaneously, because that was so important in those days. But yeah, they definitely did. I think in the Civil War they did, but I'm not sure how great the American Civil War. I'm not sure how great of an impact that had on the actual battlefield. By World War I, that's definitely all gone. Even by the Zulu Wars, that's gone. I think mostly by the time the Napoleonic Wars, and that kind of is a thing of the past. Really not sure about the Franco-Prussian War and the Austro-Prussian and the Danish-Prussian War, if they would have done that. Probably not, because they were using modern weapons at that point. Not to mention the use of instruments to deliver battlefield signals to an army. That's really what a lot of it is, because you can't hear shit with all of that noise. When the 69th Infantry Irish Brigade was in Iraq, they had their bagpiper pipe down the airport road to downtown. Very cool. That's just awesome. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, it's about time to wrap up. Okay, so you're correct, which somehow I just never noticed till now, that detect alignment replaces detect good and evil, but why is there still a detect neutrality? Yeah, that I don't know. There won't be in the 8th printing. Can you say that in your voice, Chuck? There won't be in the 8th printing.
What would you want me to say?
There's apparently a detect neutrality spell in the player's handbook. And it won't be there long, because I'm editing it right now.
Oh.
Yes, great discussion, Lord Dalis. Great points from all you guys. This is what I would love to see every GM Tricks of the Trade like. We're all throwing our ideas out. We're all discussing it. We all come from different perspectives, and we can all kind of enlighten one another, and help us, hurl ourselves into better GMing and better playing. And clearly, as Lord Dalis has said, I need to play a few assassins, and maybe I'll appreciate the class. And monks, and maybe bards. Maybe. I don't see it happening, but maybe. We'll see. Maybe there should be a spell. Ignore neutrality. There you go. Ignore alignment. How's that? Protection against neutrality. Suddenly neutrality is the new evil. All right, with that, there we go. I'll get on someone's game, Chad Skiles, and I'll play an assassin. I can't even say that sentence. It just bothers me so. All right. Yeah, we only mentioned movies once. That's pretty good. All right, so with that, we're going to wind down before I get started off on some crazy tangent. Thank you all for showing up. This was a fantastic stream. I wish everyone was this interesting. Of course, alignment's one of those subjects that just gets people fired up. But and it's time for my evening's Dr. Pepper. So you all have a great evening. Great rest of your week. We got a lot of shows. We've got Chuck. What are we going?
Well, let's see. We've got Tuesday. Well, next week will be AMA. Well, tonight we got Daniel's show. He moved it to tonight. So Haunted Holler painting later on at 8 p.m.
Okay.
Eastern, 7 Central.
Okay. That's week, Haunted Holler painting tonight at 7 Central, and then we got AMA next week at 4 Tuesday. And then we've got GM Streaks of Shade next week at 4. And something happens on Wednesday.
GM Samuel there's got his new game on Wednesdays at 7 Eastern.
Excellent. Excellent. So there we go. Definitely check back. We're building this channel ever more and more, and we are going to get that movie pop culture Twitch stream.
Yeah, it'll be like a 3-hour one. Good God.
Yeah. It'll be nonstop jibber jabber. All right, y'all have a great evening, and we will see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks so much.
Troll Lord Game.